What did you think of Micah from afar, watching him, and then now I assume you've got to visit with him? Have you started to inform him, hey, here are some ideas I have for you?
Not too much, it's all voluntary now, and we've communicated, but we've been putting together, the things that we want to use with him, and then when he gets here next week, we'll start implementing those things.
Will you be as creative with him as Dan Quinn has been?
I hope so. I think I'm pretty creative.
Will you be involved in the double-A gap?
Well, here's the thing, and I want to make sure that, he's such an outstanding pass rusher, right? And getting to the quarterback and making negative plays, that if he's standing here in that A gap, that center's going to him, right? And so this guy right here is going to be in charge of the back. So there's going to be some times where, he'll be rushing from there. There'll be times when he's rushing there and, we're getting the protection turned the way that we want it turned, and we can get two on the back. So there'll be a lot of different ways that we'll be doing some of that. And sometimes he'll be lined up outside. Sometimes he'll be lined up somewhere back there. But we're going to move him around, yeah.
How rare is his combination of speed and power? I mean, you've been around some really good ones. How does he stand out in that area?
Yeah, he's rare. Obviously, tremendous athlete. From what I understand, very, very smart. And and usually smart guys that have outstanding ability, their ceiling is so high that you can do a lot of things with them, because they're going to know what to do and how to do it, and the other thing too that I think, I hired Greg Ellis, or Mike hired Greg Ellis to help with the defense and the pass rush, and Greg was the best I've ever been around, using his hands and setting guys up with rushes and things like that. So, our job is to try to get, in a lot of the games last year where they didn't play quite as good defensively, the offensive schemed Parsons a lot. The back was checking, and coming over here, or they got the two tight ends over there and they're both staying and all the protections turned that way. So our job is to, if teams are going to do that, number one, figure out a way how we can still use him where we want him, and number two, how can we use other people to affect those kind of protections? Because everybody's going to be aware of him, just like I talked about in the A gap. Everybody knows where he is. There's number 11, right? So so we're turning the protection this way, and now how are we going to defeat that protection? And typically, when we started with the double A gaps and when I was here with Parcells, part of it was, how can we attack protections? And it's getting a lot of the other players to understand, hey, this is where the protection's going now. You guys have one-on-ones over here, or, we have 3 one-on-ones with the back on this side. So how can we do that? And it's partly going to be their job to understand that, okay, we've got the slide going this way. We're man over here. What game are we going to run to affect those two players? Because it's 2-on-2 now.
Remember when Ellis started doing like jujitsu or something? Was that, I don't know if it was 03 or 04, but I imagine that even maybe helped some of the hands and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you see him walking down the hallway now, he's still doing stuff like this.
Wax on.
You think he's talking to somebody, But and I've had him come to training camp with me before, when I was the head coach. So I know what he can do, and the way that he teaches, and he's outstanding.
I thought he was like a movie producer, though. I guess he's now put that aside.
I don't know if he was a movie producer.
Yeah, he was involved in that Carter High movie. Yeah, he was one of the producers on that.
All those pro guys are involved with a lot of stuff.
You mentioned that your background as a coach is...
Okay, there we go. All right, so he said a lot there about Micah Parsons. Break this down, bro.
Man, well, it's great that he said it, because I hadn't seen this all, right? But that's basically what I was saying. I'm like, when you have a Micah Parsons on a running back, or you have him in the middle of the field, lined up off ball in the A gap, that's exactly what it does. It's like, it makes it so that you have an extra pass rusher on the field at the same time, but at the same token, you have Micah Parsons either lined up on a center who can't deal with Micah Parsons by himself. You have a running back dealing with him because you don't know what Micah Parsons is doing. So if a running back's assigned to Micah Parsons, That's dead meat for the quarterback. If you have guys on the outside and all they're asked to do is either just keep the quarterback stepping up into the A gap so that Micah Parsons can eat, or have Micah Parsons collapse the A gap at times when he's blitzing so that he can spill out. That quarterback can spill out left or right. Though that's what I was saying. You get walk to me sacks for those other guys because they're dealing with one-on-ones. That's exactly what I mean. Same thing when he was talking about his stunts. His stunts are based on actual science or actual like an actual scenario. He just said like, how do we run a game? That's what he means when he says game. He's talking about stunt. But how do we want to run games to affect where we already know the protection is going to slide? Like I was saying, if Micah Parsons lined up over here and they're double teaming Micah Parsons, we should be shifting away from that. We know exactly. I just said that. We know exactly where they want to run the football. If D-Law is on one side, Hankins is on one side, Micah Parsons is all the way over there. We know exactly where they're running. So they shouldn't be able to execute that every time if you already know before the snap what they want to do based off where Micah Parsons is lined up. So it's great because I'm not in that locker room. I don't have his phone number. But all I have is just common sense and the film and then understanding. For the fact that he's saying that, like that to me just makes me feel good about where my assessment is, because if he's saying that and that's what I feel anyway, that I know we're aligned and I kind of understand what we're going to see come this season. I know what we're going to see because he's saying exactly what I think you should do with a Micah Parsons in the first place.
Absolutely. And like one thing he talked about his hand usage. I think that's something that we talked about before with Micah Parsons.
Micah doesn't use his hands.
Exactly. What are you seeing like on film when it comes to Micah Parsons and his lack of hand
it's scary
usage?
Because to get 13 sacks the way Micah Parsons is getting 13 sacks the hard way, using his legs, and running straight. He'll give you his chest, so he runs straight to contact, which is why a lot of people who bitch about Micah Parsons being held so much, I do know he is being held, but we know if you play football, you understand. If someone grabs you inside the collar here, right? If a lineman grabs you here or grabs you underneath the chest pad here or shoulder pad here, it's legal. That's allowed as long as their hands are inside. That's legal. They don't call it until you pull away, until that guy makes a move and pulls away and they can see that you're still grabbing t-shirt. But if you grab them up the collar or under the chest pad, it's legal as long as you keep your hands inside and you stay in front of the man's center. That would happen to Micah Parsons more than anybody else in the league, not because referees hate Micah Parsons. It's because Micah Parsons will run right into your hands with his chest and allow you to grab him there. But the difference is he's so good, he would run straight through that contact in most cases and still get a sack. Just like you referenced that Miami game. When you look at the Miami game film on those run plays, he was getting double teamed by linemen. He ran through that and still made tackles. He did it in Washington when he was off the ball too. But he was getting held because he's running straight through their contact. They're just not strong enough to stop the strength that he has in his lower body. He runs straight through that contact. So if he could just understand how to keep guys away from his frame and keep their hands away from his chest, he would be even better. But right now, he doesn't do that at all. Not really. So if he's not doing that at all, and we're still talking about him as being one of the best defenders in the league, and he has that kind of flaw, which most defenders can't overcome that flaw because they're not as fast as him and they're not as athletically gifted as he is. So most linemen, if they're bad with their hands, they're just bad. You know what I mean? If you're a defensive end and you can't use your hands very well, you're probably pretty bad unless you're like Dwight Freeney or something and you have like some gimmick move that makes it so that they can't really deal with you. But the greats all can use their hands very well. Micah Parsons already is considered great, and he doesn't use his hands very well. So that's not a knock on him. That's telling you this is how good this guy is really going to be if he just learns to do those things better and if he's schemed better.
And bro, here's the thing though, right? Like when it comes to Micah Parsons, I think you and I are on the same page when it comes to this. Micah Parsons is the most talented defensive player in football. To me, he's the second most talented player in football behind Patrick Mahomes. Okay.
No, I have to disagree. Micah Parsons is the most talented football player right now in the league. He could, if you gave Micah Parsons a ball, he can play running back. If you want him to play receiver, he could probably do that. You want him to play tight end, he can do that. Mahomes is the most talented quarterback in the league, but he can't do shit that Micah Parsons can do. Micah Parsons just showed me now he might not be a great quarterback, but he just went through footwork drills with CJ Stroud and did pretty damn good. So he might not be a great quarterback, but I don't think any quarterback can be as good at any other position that he is. So Micah Parsons is the most talented player in the entire football league
That's
now
fair.
today.
That's fair. I didn't even think about it like that. That's a great point. But like, all right, Micah Parsons is the most talented defensive or the player overall in the NFL.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be having a conversation of like, all right, who's better, Max Crosby or Micah Parsons in terms of what they put on the field? We shouldn't be having that conversation.
Yeah. Max Crosby is not an apples to apples comparison.
No, it's not.
The thing is, Micah Parsons, you have to look at him like this. Positionally, what is his grade? Positionally, not player to player. Because if you try to player to player it, you can find players that are better than him at their position. Meaning, like, if you said, hey, is Micah Parsons better than TJ Watt at TJ Watt's position? Maybe not. But Micah Parsons can do the things as a defensive end stand-up outside linebacker. He's still an A player at a defensive outside linebacker, right? In a 3-4. As a defensive end, is Micah Parsons the best defensive end? So is he better than Bosa at defensive end? You can argue if you want that Bosa's a better defensive end. So Micah Parsons still an A-graded defensive end. At 3-tech, is he better than Osa at 3-tech? Maybe not for an entire game, but he's still an A-graded 3-tech when you line him up as a stand-up 3-tech. You know what I mean? Same thing at 0. As a linebacker, is he better than? They'll say, oh, he's not better than what's his name?
Fred Warner.
But Fred Warner is an A-graded linebacker. Micah Parsons would be an A-graded linebacker. The difference is what I just told you. Micah Parsons, if you ask him to be a Cam Chancellor, he would be an A-graded strong box safety. You know what I'm saying? If you ask him to play nickel corner, he would be like a C player as a corner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no other player that can be graded as high in as many positions as a Micah Parsons. So to compare him to one player at one position doesn't make any sense because he's good at any position. So they're not. They're great at their position. It's a saying that I used to say, people used to say about me, right? Not to my own horn, but it's true. I used to think that it was a bad thing because I didn't know the whole thing. But this is true to Micah Parsons. And he's a Gemini, which is even crazier, which tells you why he's so good at every fucking position because he's probably a nutcase. Like, no offense to Geminis. My wife's a Gemini. My mom's a Gemini. My ex-wife's a Gemini. My uncle's a Gemini. So
I'm a Gemini too, bro. What you trying to? No, I'm kidding. I'm not on that. Too? No, I'm not. No.
Oh, damn. I was about to say Kendrick's a Gemini. You know what I mean? So, but I say this to say, the saying is this. The jack of all trades is a master of none. I used to think that was bad because I didn't know the rest of it. But the rest of it is he's still always better than the master of one. You understand?
Yep.
So those guys may be masters at their position and may be better at their position than he is if he played at that one position. But he's better at multiple positions than they could ever be. So Max Crosby is not better than Micah Parsons because he can't go play 3-tech. He can't go play linebacker.
True.
But Micah Parsons can give you what Max Crosby's giving you, or some of it, most of it, as far as being a defensive end. Fred Warner is not better than Micah Parsons because he can't go play defensive end and he can't go play 3-tech or safety. But Micah Parsons can give you what Fred Warner gives you or what, Roquan Smith gives you. So there's nothing like him in the league. There is nothing.
No,
and I'll say this about one other player. The reason I say Izzy Mukuamu is the best defensive back on this team is the same reason. He can play inside. He can play outside. He can play single high safety. He could play box safety. He could play tight end eraser, man on third down safety if you want him to. By himself. He can do all of them, right? So that's how I assess talent.
No, 100% correct. But this is what I meant by that. With the way Dan Quinn used Micah Parsons, which is just, hey, go play defensive end all game. When you put it like that, Max Crosby is a better defensive end than Micah Parsons. That's the reason why I said that. But we know as an all-around player, Max Crosby's a better player. And that's the thing, right? I do think that some of this has to do with, how he was utilized over the past few years with Dan Quinn. But I also think that, we talked about, his lack of hand usage. If he'd get better with his hands, he'd be a better defensive end and even a better pass rusher than he already is. And that's where I think you and I are coming from and where we agree on this, where it's like, there's still things that this guy can tap into, and we want him to tap into that because we think he can ultimately be even better than he already is.
Right.